Can I have your attention for a second? The scripts that I'm holding in your hand, please don't take them home. At the end of the day, please leave them at the front desk. Thank you. 呢個白色嘅經文呢，睇完之後，請臨走之前放返喺我哋個櫃面。請不要把這個經文拿到家裡，放為這個 check in 的地方。謝謝。
So Rinpoche would like us to start with reading the prayer of Kuntu Sangpo in English together. So we're starting on page 29 as the opening prayers. Home, everything, appearance and existence, samsara and nirvana, has a single ground, yet two paths and two fruitions, and magically displays as awareness or unawareness. Through Kuntu Sangpo's prayer, may all beings become Buddhas, completely perfected in the abode of the Dharma Dhatu. The ground of all is uncompounded, and the self-arising great expanse beyond expression has neither the name samsara nor nirvana. Realizing just this, you are a Buddha. Not realizing this, you are a being wandering in samsara. I pray that all you beings of the three realms may realize the true meaning of the inexpressible ground. I, Kuntu Sangpo, have realized the truth of this ground, free from cause and condition, which is just the self-arising awareness. It is unstained by outer expression and inner thought, affirmation or denial, and is not defiled by the darkness of unmindfulness. Thus, this self-manifesting display is free from defects. I, Kuntu Sangpo, abide as intrinsic awareness. Even though the three realms were to be destroyed, there is no fear. There is no attachment to the five desirable qualities of sense objects. In self-arising consciousness, free of thoughts, there is neither solid form nor the five poisons. In the unceasing clarity of awareness, singular in essence, there yet arises the display of the five wisdoms. From the ripening of these five wisdoms, the five original Buddha families emerge, and through the expanse of their wisdom, the 42 peaceful Buddhas appear. Through the arising power of the five wisdoms, the 60 wrathful Herukas manifest. Awareness is never mistaken or wrong. I, Kuntu Sangpo, am the original Buddha of all, and through this prayer of mine, may all you beings who wander in the three realms of samsara realize this self-arising awareness, and may your great wisdom spontaneously increase. My emanations will continuously manifest in billions of unimaginable ways, appearing in forms to help you beings who can be trained. Through my compassionate prayer, may all of you beings who wander in the three realms of samsara escape from the 6 life forms. From the beginning, you beings are deluded, because you do not recognize the awareness of the ground. Being thus unmindful of what occurs is delusion, the very state of unawareness and the cause of going astray. From this delusive state comes a sudden fainting away, and then a subtle consciousness of wavering fear. From that wavering, there arises a separation of self and the perception of others as enemies. Gradually, the tendency of separation strengthens, and from this, the circle of samsara begins. Then the emotions of the 5 poisons develop. The actions of these emotions are endless. You beings lack awareness because you are unmindful, and this is the basis of your going astray. Through my prayer, may all you beings recognize your intrinsic awareness. Innate unawareness means unmindfulness and distraction. Imputing unawareness means dualistic thoughts towards self and others. Both kinds of unawareness are the basis for the delusion of all beings. Through Kuntu Sangpo's prayer, may all you beings wandering in samsara clear away the dark fog of unmindfulness, clear away the clinging thoughts of duality. May you recognize your own intrinsic awareness. Dualistic thoughts create doubt. From subtle attachment to this dualistic turn of mind, dualistic tendencies become stronger and thicker. Food, wealth, clothes, home, and friends, the 5 objects of the senses, and your beloved family, all these things cause torment by creating longing and desire. These are all worldly delusions. The activities of grasping and clinging are endless. When the fruition of attachment ripens, you are born as a hungry ghost, tormented by coveting and desiring, miserable, starving, and thirsty. Through Gondo Sangpo's prayer, may all you desirous and lustful beings who have attachments neither reject longing desires nor accept attachment to desires. Let your consciousness relax in its own natural state, then your awareness will be able to hold its own. May you achieve the wisdom of perfect discernment. When external objects appear, the subtle consciousness of fear will arise. From this fear, the habit of anger becomes stronger and stronger. Finally, hostility comes, causing violence and murder. When the fruition of this anger ripens, you will suffer in hell by boiling and burning. Through Gondo Sangpo's prayer, you beings of the 6 realms, when strong anger arises for you, neither reject nor accept it. Instead, relax in the natural state and achieve the wisdom of clarity. When your mind becomes full of pride, there will arise thoughts of competition and humiliation. As this pride becomes stronger and stronger, you will experience the suffering of quarrels and abuse. When the fruition of this karma ripens, you will be born in the God realms and experience the suffering of change and falling to lower rebirth. Through Gondo Sangpo's prayer, may you beings who develop pride, let your consciousness relax in the natural state. Then your awareness will be able to hold its own. May you achieve the wisdom of equanimity. By increasing the habit of duality, by praising yourself and denigrating others, your competitive mind will lead you to jealousy and fighting, and you will be born in the jealous God realm, where there is much killing and injury. From the result of that killing, you will fall into the hell realm. Through Gondo Sangpo's prayer, when jealousy and competitive thoughts arise, do not grasp them as enemies. Just relax in ease. Then consciousness can hold its own natural state. May you achieve the wisdom of unobstructed action. By being distracted, careless, and unmindful, you beings will become dull, foggy, and forgetful. By being unconscious and lazy, you will increase your ignorance, and the fruition of this ignorance will be to wander helplessly in the animal realm. Through Gondo Sangpo's prayer, may you beings who have fallen into the dark pit of ignorance shine the light of mindfulness and thereby achieve wisdom free from thought. All you beings of the 3 realms are actually identical to Buddha, the ground of all. But your misunderstanding of the ground causes you to go astray, so you act without aim. The 6 karmic actions are a delusion like a dream. I am the primordial Buddha, here to train the 6 kinds of beings through all my manifestations. Through Gondo Sangpo's prayer, may all you beings without exception attain enlightenment in the state of Dharmadhatu. Aho! Hereafter, whenever a very powerful yogin, with his or her awareness radiant and free from delusion, recites this very powerful prayer, then all who hear it will achieve enlightenment within 3 lifetimes. During a solar or lunar eclipse, during an earthquake or when the earth rumbles, at the solstices or the new year, you should visualize Gondo Sangpo. And if you pray loudly so all can hear, then beings of the 3 realms will be gradually liberated from suffering through the prayer of the yogin and will finally achieve enlightenment.
Rồi là mình cho số để có số đó cho là cái gì nhà tôi mới cho chỉ là đó chân chỉ nó là cho đã chỉ là tạm bao cho dân đó số thế này đó you meet you don't about số đấy à đã có được dòng bộ ngay chẳng you chỉ mình phải dễ sống thế có được dòng không rải chẳng you chỉ mình phải dễ sống dễ mà chỉ mà chỉ như mình chỉ phải nên nằm cả thế cho các người chẳng mà chỉ là chỉ các cái chuyện chắc thuộc về mà you chỉ tham gia để bà hết làm giống you chỉ tham gia để bà hết làm giống you chỉ mình phải dễ sống thế tao chỉ nằm cả tao không bắt không chẳng mà thế nhỉ dễ để làm giống rồi dễ thế nhỉ là không bắt nằm cả tao để lẽ sống à cái này ni mà như vậy làm giống cái bà tất cả cái gì gọi là số xem là chất ta na đi hiểu cái số chất đặc biệt tăng cái này phá coi như đó thì cái này có thuộc cái máy có chỉ tao bé vào đó chẳng cái này ta đi xem cái cổ sẽ hiểu rồi xem cha chẳng sẽ hiểu rồi ta làm cái số chất đặc biệt ta đi kinh nghiệm bài gì xem cái cái chẳng mà gì cái chẳng mà được ta xem cái đó ok kaya medok sampai, sem niya medok sampai, niya medok sampai siapa tahu di kaya, niya ya medok sampai si sampai medok tak tak sih tahu. Oi, tadi kaya medok sampai siapa itu kau sahaja tahu sih, dia kan jadi jadi langsung berdebat, orang jadi semua jadi langsung ke, jadi rek dia 신경 싸워 돼. 그래. 시바 싸워도 나가 내가 가야지 신경 시바는 너 저도 딱히 당기고 말. 그 진짜 랑종을 르바디는 다다 르바디를 많이 다다 코바간 요리 때문에 책당이고 말이지. 감성 생기는 생도 용리들을 봐서 요리 요한테 가서 안 거야. 나 오냐 봤다 저기 르바디 돌로 가리죠. 나오 잡아야죠. 링게리 잘하지. 미리 상고요. 도망가게 보응가게 총마다 나도 좀 열탐지 다 관리 잡디요라. 이 잡디기를 빠져 나온 거지. 잡디 빠져 철거요리지. 나보자 그래. 총킹이 시바지다. 체제가 좋다고면 텔리젤을 ram종을 빠지. 말을 거 나시시에 다 나버리 시바지. 나버리 시바지는 가리 이 말을 배송을 sempre 가면 낭시리 때 하고도 이시 낭시 이시 제발때 매직 파카호리라 낭시 차지가 있어 철카코는 랑 동바 통로다 이시 차로요 낭시대 이시 제발때 말을 배 공부 다 통처지 낭시 만통 이시 통데 낭시 매도 돼 이시래 샤 이시하고도 야와 탐지 이시롱도 즉송 이시가 용되지 시송데 다다다 이 라브로 빠지 모시게요 ram종을 빠지 타톡데 책적이 라그라그를 빠지 라그 세군데로 썩동 남가다지 썩을 자들을 빠지다 적고요 제 말을 좀 말을 빠지 말과 남시에人家是과연 다 적고요 빠지는 다 이시지 다 적고요 다시 sempre 산지 하고요 산지 되는 거고요 이제 십 남미진 딱딱지 콘크리트로 가게 먹어야 이거요 나 하고 그랬더니 롱도를 봐가 쟤나 원면 자와지 다 뽑도 막 먹어 이는 바고요 로망 걸시 됐다 이는 바고요 야 냠니 살아고 지바요 독신시에요 착신시에요 나서 말고 사기시에요. 나중마다 독신성거요. 너는 몇직을 맹성하기래 세조가지 기성고. 이 몇직을 맹성 딱 하는 길이 우리 맹다고 홀 맹다고 사요 말이지. 맹매 되는 쪽에 요리 이제 기성고. 치모 섬좀 말 뽑고 줘. 우리 다 그런 맹다야 요 말이지. 맹다고 이제요 말이지.
And so it said, then Aiko Sambo, also we have stopped with on page 30, the true meaning of the inexpressible ground. And then Aiko Sambo have realized the truth of this ground, which is free from cause and condition. Free from cause and condition, which is just the self-arising awareness. So this ground, the truth of this ground is free from cause and condition. Gunto Sambo, or the ground, the basis of mind, is never created from causes, so it doesn't arise from a cause, and therefore it cannot be destroyed by any condition, just like space. Space never arises from anywhere, and it can never be destroyed by any condition. And so that which doesn't arise and cannot be destroyed is what we call this self-arising awareness here. Self-arising awareness is it exists on its own. It naturally exists without relying on causes and conditions. So that nature, the self-arising awareness, is empty like space, because it cannot arise from causes and not be destroyed by conditions. But then it is not just empty, emptiness, nothingness. There also is a knowing factor to it, and that is this self-arising awareness. So the self-arising here refers to the space-like empty nature, and awareness here refers to the knowing aspect of this nature. So it is non-dual, like the expanse of space. It naturally self-exists, but then also it knows. So when you look at this nature, and the moment when you look at this nature, there is a knowing capacity that thinks and that knows things. So everything that we talk about here is talking about the mind. So therefore, when you hear these instructions, you should apply that to your mind. Face inward and look inside your own mind. So this is nothing that we can understand by projecting outward and investigating the outer conditions, the outer world, because then we will end up not understanding anything. So this is something, an instruction that we need to actually face into and apply to our own mind. So this is only talking about one's own mind, the nature of one's own mind. So when you look at your mind, the mind has not arisen from causes, so it is not established. It doesn't exist. It never is born. But then where is it? So you might think it's nowhere. It does not exist. It's not there. But then there is this consciousness that knows, that the one that thinks that, the one that knows, I can't find it. It's not there. So there is a clear, a conscious mind that knows that it cannot be found. So therefore we cannot say there is nothing at all. And who is the one thinking that? That's the one you need to look at. The one that is thinking, I can't find it. It exists or it doesn't exist. It's not there, and so on. So there is this clear knowing mind, this clear consciousness that knows that there is nothing there. So this is this awareness quality. So it knows that it is self-arisen like space. So that is the one that we need to look at. And that one, and this clear conscious mind is always there. Just normally we never actually look at it. We do not notice its presence, but it is actually always there. Normally it is projected outward. And so this awareness, this mind, is the mind that all beings have, also in samsara. There is no being that doesn't have Rigpa, this awareness. All beings in the three realms of samsara have this mind. They have a mind, and therefore they have Rigpa, they have awareness. They are aware of things. And however, although all beings possess awareness, this awareness becomes into self-awareness, which means they perceive as self. Everything is revolves around the I. Everything is somehow related to me. These are my things, or this is my child, my spouse, and so on. All those things that we possess, that we own. So this awareness pervades all those things that are around us, the things that we own or identify with. So that is what we are aware of. We know those things that we claim to be ours. But then we never actually see the consciousness, this awareness that the one that knows that, the one that knows this is mine, the one that takes ownership of all those things or identifies with those things, that one we never actually look at. And so not looking at that one is unawareness or ignorance. And in that context of being ignorance, we call this mind the rational consciousness. Milarepa had said in the context of being a sentient being, we refer to it as the rational consciousness that faces outward. But if you know the nature of this consciousness, that itself is wisdom. So when we project outward, this consciousness discerns objects, and then it is called the rational consciousness. But when it faces inwards and looks at itself, then it is called wisdom. So when awareness sees its own face, like seeing your own face, when you see yourself, then that is what we call wisdom, or primordial wisdom. So therefore, Milarepa, who had realized the view, had said, I do not see ordinary consciousness or rational consciousness, I only see primordial wisdom. There is no real consciousness or rational consciousness. There is only wisdom. It is that within the expanse of primordial wisdom, all the Buddhas are one. And so that is the quality of primordial wisdom. So this is what this line here is talking about. The self-arising awareness is explaining the qualities of this primordial wisdom on the ultimate level. And so whenever you see yourself, your true mind, your awareness, then you can refer to that as Rigpa, or awareness. The nature of it is clear and empty. So whoever sees it, it is called primordial wisdom, or Rigpa, awareness. Whoever is unaware of it, who doesn't see it, such a one is ignorant. And then we refer to the same mind as the rational consciousness. But it is that quality of mind, that mind itself, from where the Buddha arises. It is your mind itself. And so here, when you hear those words, you should really look inside your own mind and really apply that to your own mind, because you came here maybe enduring many hardships to receive those instructions. So here you must really face inward and see how that is in your own mind. So from the perspective of the logical reasoning and the scriptures, that is referred to as the Madhyamaka, or the middle way view. And what is explained here actually explains all that is complete within many countless scripture volumes of the middle way, the Madhyamaka. So many years of studying and explanation are complete within only that view that is explained here. So that is the Madhyamaka. But then also it is explained in the practice lineage of blessings, where we refer to it in the old tantric system as Dzogchen, or in the new tantric system as Mahamudra. But it is all the same thing. Chikden Sumgön had said it is like giving three different names to one single person. He said it cannot be given a name. It cannot be called anything. It has no name. So therefore, Chikden Sumgön had said, being untouched by the three great ones, so those three views of Mahamudra, Dzogchen, and Madhyamaka, being untouched by the three great ones, that is the supreme realization. That is, being untouched means it actually cannot be given a name.
이제 저기 살찐 독주고 막 가르치는 이제 쪽도가 로고요 대회나들이 되라 대리 예래랑도 다를 빠지라 딱지 땅아 당부치 하고 그런 거 낭시 넘버 10 저를 칼라 선한데 심어도 뭐도 또 상이 가지 딱지 타고 이 동료를 저 충충지잖아요. 집착거리는 내가 직장마다 생각 나도 내가 흉이 제일 좋고 참을 제일 좋고 요리는 혼대니 제발보다 제일 빠르게 요리 이제 빠지다 가다 모시들 따로 빠져 가도 따고 요리 저는 왕원 좀 말씀을 당부 다 모시고 문제들 내당 모바 저기 라바지가 샘피주에 저한테 나 그셔서 나그 강급자나들 다라고 쉬어야지 이제 나도 남만하고 나 맨날 생기처럼 샘피 따야요 말이지 나 인증 무지 터버려 남만하고 딱지도 나지 터봤지 이제 딱지도 딸 맞춰버려야지 이 좋게 라면 근데 용네 그냥 나 톱son지 나 톱마성지 나 톱마서 체랑 다다 너는 가르치 용아 나 주쇼 용아 나 통야 요말 주나 주쇼 용아 나 원형 받다 되게 나안 지지 안 잡아 되게 추억 되게 쇼요래 고와 되게 요래 나디 되게 요래 그래서 다 주로서 망아들 주쇼 용이요 당연히 주인이요 상대 나오냐면 니 뭐인지 하고서 그냥 초딩 내 가르쳐 나한테 뭔지 나한테 달리 가까이 해야 오 들이 길이다 동반하고 통치 하고 그래 답적으로 제일 문제 되는 거게 나와야
So, in the beginning, therefore, in the Samantabhadra prayer says that there is a single ground, a single basis. So there is no two, no duality. As the single basis is primordial wisdom. Once there is a duality, a dualistic perception, that is samsara. So this single basis is referred to as the Madhyamaka, Mahamudra, or Dzogchen, but it is all referring to the single basis. And so in order to realize, to recognize Rigpa, or this awareness, first we need to recognize our rational consciousness. So we need to observe that one who is, for example, eating the food and then labels it, this tastes good, or this doesn't taste good, or the one who is wearing clothing who thinks this is good or bad. So the one who is doing all those activities and labels all these activities, engages in all these activities, even the slightest thing, or even if you do not do anything at all, you're thinking, there's someone who has all those thoughts and makes these plans and thinks, I will do this, or I will not do that, and so on. So that is the one that is doing all the things. That is the one who is doing everything in samsara and nirvana. That one is Rigpa, or awareness. So first we need to recognize that one who is engaging in all those activities. So therefore, in order to recognize Rigpa, we first actually need to recognize that self. In the past, there was a beginning practitioner who requested from his guru pointing out instructions, pointing out the nature of the mind instructions. And that Lama then said to him, well, first you need to find the self and bring me yourself. And so then this, when you can find the self, only if you can find the self, I will give you the instructions. If you can't find it, then I will not give you the instructions pointing out the nature of the mind. You must first find the self. And so then this student was looking day and night and trying to find the self, but he couldn't find it. And then one morning he went back to that Lama. The Lama asked him, so where is the self now? Have you found it? And he said that I was looking everywhere, but I couldn't find the self. So then the Lama says, so what are you doing here then? What are you doing? Why did you come here at all then? And he said, I came here to listen to the Dharma, to receive Dharma teachings. And then the Guru said, this is where it is. There it is, that I'm here to listen to the Dharma teachings. So that I you cannot see, but it is doing things. It is the one that thinks I am. And that is what we think we are, this I. So that is the I that is engaging in all the activities in samsara and nirvana. It is doing all the various things. You come here to receive teachings. It is that I that comes here to receive teachings. Because then you think, I have received those teachings. I am practicing the Dharma and so on. So this is how we first recognize the I. This is the I that we need to see. It's the one that is thinking, I'm doing all these things. Now I'm going to do this. I'm going here or there. So the one who is thinking that's the one that we first need to recognize. The one that is doing all kinds of things. So therefore, look at the one who is engaging in the various activities. And that is just like seeing your own face, seeing yourself. So that is one method to recognize awareness. So according to this introduction, this instruction that this beginning practitioner received from his master.
이 책이 저기 나갔다. 옥마본도 이렇게. 오, 다산보다 가도 니 싫어도 다른 자가 지내잖아. 지내다가 지내다 상아 이는 박차 공식이 세상에 뭐로 요래. 나 진짜 공념이 이런 거 때때 내가 봐도 생살이 초로도 올라가는 거 요래. 제 살 독서는 여기 그 살인 독서는 그 생이 샤되는 하고지 남이 하고지. 오 말이 따뜻해도 뭐니 나나도. 그거 거다고 나나도. 설요 말이 다 남이 하고고 요지. 설이 장소는 남이 하고 그 시바요 말 자와. 어떻게 지 남이 설이 가리 샤라고 지 남이 하고 그러와. 다 설은 독서는 설은 독서는 설은 독서 설요 말이. 다 나나도 남이 시도 다 남이 가와도 되네. 다 지내기는 레바는 도그라피 오리. 다 가시기는 현근나죠 오리. 요 말이지. 처음에 찾을 조건을 카드 적는 초록으로 시용을 해서. 조건 내 때문에 가만 때든지 내면에 초록으로 찾대요. 나는 독지나. 다 나는 요 말이지. 서서가사간 참으로. 서른도 나는도 딱히 동시 열마리 빠직 심하다 말이. 낭지. 내가 가시 그 딱지 땅, 딱지 땅은 나와 긴다 단지 그 딱지는 오 가다 나 좋아 이거 말이지. 이내면도 그 딱지 땅 나가는 게 차서 나요 말이 대마치 레좀 돼도다 준비 거거리스. 준비 요면 나 요면서 깡치지레스. 매 시설이 요 말이지 매 도난 길이지. 어디니 좀 제발 와서 매 총을 매송요 말인지 매송은 좀 너무 이 겁이남는 주 다음래가 제거지 적 이사는 이디오이다. 또 생각을 가지고 내도 좋아 지금 좋아 용서와. 좀 믿어도 왜 미송 좀 이디오라더니 이거 가요 요 말아. 넌 없지. 누구니 거기다 데이터 봐도야 요 지금 앞서야 요 이 따지다 다른 게 하던 상진상이 말을 대는 거예요. 오, 매, 세, 낭도, 설람도, 낭람도, 설독도, 낭도, 낭도, 설독, 로다 다 요제, 가시 요제, 선우직이 요, 나도 생기 요, 근데 참하 요리, 요바들 매대, 나한테 마비 따라서 그러고, 요지, 그거 요바들 매발을 딱 고쳐 말해라, 거야. 요디나 선 육인자 사강대 이마 좀 제대로 탈안 줘도 요 말이지 나도 생기 맛이 사탕을 뭐 찍정 요 말이지 맛이 얘기 쇠리 이마다 그랬죠 찍정 요 말이지 단 토도 요디는 요 말이 다 이제 뭐 다봐 하고 좀 오호 다 요디 맹다고 던지 양고 좀 밤송 미되는 것들이 레주되게 신 나발시바 되게 레게되게 초발했더니 딴 남을 내도 농구와 대신 미되나 다양하고요 말이지 조다는 요지는 다 조다 살아 조다 보는 시 내 밤송 미되는 그만 미되는 시부터 이 제부터 대양 밤송 사지 그래서 나 로걸 좀마다 너는 진실을 빠지고 요리 요는 될때 중종사요 말이고 라종을 빠지면 다도 뭔가 사지고 중종도 싸우는 요 말이지 다 제뭐이든 다 이제는데 봐도 배차는 저들은 다 이제는 다 일도 요민이 딱 세이 나와 이들이 다 참만 놓으면 다만 거 요리 참만 놓사를 놓을지 봐도 다도 파는 거요 제가 쉬운 거요 요 정도 간단하게 나 속들아 다다 라리 소비만 해본데 설르마다 롱두마다 참마다 바리 참마다 바리고 말이지 얘는 이제 오다 대사위에서 다 딱지기경 같고 막 통로다 막 커서 첫집으로 딱지 땅다 새난 로를 뚱마다 서 너는 중종 사요 말이지
And so then it says, it is unstained by outer expression and inner thought, affirmation or denial, and is not defiled by the darkness of unmindfulness. Thus, it is self-manifesting display is free from defects. So within that, actually, within those 4 points, a lot of things to be understood are complete, actually. These 4 words: the outer, the inner, affirmation, and denial. So there are some 4 parts to it. So that is in terms of trying to find awareness. So previously we have recognized this is the awareness, this is Rigpa. But then where actually is it? Is it outer, inner? Does it exist or not exist? Affirmation or denial? So that's the next investigation here. So we might think that the mind goes outward. For example, when we think about India or China or something, whatever we think of, according to our habitual imprints in the mind, it seems that the consciousness, the mind goes there, goes out there. Or also when we meditate, often people say that the mind doesn't stay, the mind always wanders outside, goes somewhere else. So we think it goes outside. There is this outside. The mind can go outside. But actually, all those things that you think about, those different places where the mind wanders, are all things that actually appear back to the mind. So the mind actually doesn't go there, but you're thinking about them within your own mind. So when you think it is all outer, the mind goes outside, then actually it is inside, and actually it's not outside, but you come back to the inside. It is a thought within your own mind. So you think the one who is thinking that is this perception of I. So you think the mind goes outward, but actually it is inside. And so then you think it. So then you think it is inside. So once you have, once you have confirmed that it cannot be outside, because everything that you think of actually is thought inside the mind and not elsewhere, then you think, okay, if it's not outside, it is inside. But then if it's inside, then where is it inside? For example, scientists might say it's in the brain, or some other people say it's in the heart, but it's in none of those places. Actually, it's all pervasive. It pervades your entire body. Your feelings all over your body, feelings of pleasure and pain, For example, if you poke yourself with a needle in your body, immediately there's a sensation. Wherever you poke yourself with that needle, there's a feeling. So there's someone who feels pleasure and pain on the body, even if it's just a very subtle sensation. So it's everywhere in your body. It's all pervasive. So we cannot say it is somewhere inside. It's everywhere. So when we think it's inside, then again it seems to be outside, kind of everywhere. When you think it's outside, then it seems that actually it's not outside but inside. So this shows that the mind is not an object of such investigation in terms of outer and inner. And then also affirmation and denial. Some people say that when you look at your mind, it becomes like space, and there really is no self. It doesn't really exist, just like space. So then they also say that therefore nothing really exists. Karma also doesn't exist. Karma is a made-up lie. It is not true. Therefore I can do whatever I want. And they think, for example, when we die, we just go out of existence like a withering flower. So that is a view of nihilism. And when we think that nothing exists at all. But that is not tenable, because if you think that nothing exists, then what happens, for example, when you're sleeping at night? When you're sleeping at night, your body just lies there and nothing happens to the body, but you're dreaming, and in your dream you're engaging in all sorts of activities, and you experience fear and happiness and suffering and so on, and you do all kinds of things in your dream. So at that time, have you disappeared? You have not just disappeared, you are still there, just your body has disappeared. Your body is just lying there in the bed sleeping. The daytime appearances, perceptions are all gone. They have all disappeared. But you still exist in your own experience. And so therefore that is a sign that there is a bardo, something after we have died. There is something after this life. And so we can understand that when we observe our perceptions of daytime and nighttime in our dreams. Some people, on the other hand, then think that things do exist and everything actually really exists. For example, these like materialist or communist also views, and they would say this is all foolish. And when your Buddhists, for example, are saying that nothing exists when clearly everything is there. We can see there is this world, there's the universe, there's so many people, so how can you say it's not there? It's clearly there, we can all see it. However, even though things appear to us in this way now, the outer universe, for example, this planet, one day will turn into dust, and then it is all gone. And also within that, there is not a single being who will not have to die. So whatever appears now will perish later. It therefore appears just like an illusory display. So we cannot say that things really exist, because things are compounded, and therefore they are impermanent. So when we argue that things really exist, we will not be able to hold this argument. But also if we say things do not really exist, we also cannot hold this argument, because then there is still karma that is ripening. If you engage in various actions of virtue and non-virtue, there will be an actual experience of happiness and suffering. So that's why we cannot say nothing exists at all. So both of these can be refuted. So affirmation is this basically an eternalist view, and denial and nihilistic view. And both cannot withstand any scrutiny that the Buddha had applied. So when you look at your own mind, your consciousness, therefore it says it is free from defects. The self-manifesting display is free from defects. There's nothing that really exists or does not exist. It is also not outer and not inner. So it is free from the four extremes, according to how it is explained in the scriptures. And those four extremes are summarized by two extremes of eternalism and nihilism. So all kinds of mistaken views gather within those two. And ultimately, all of these views cannot hold. So, for example, when a person thinks this is me, pointing at their body. Then in the 37 practices, for example, it says everything, your own body, your wealth and possessions are all impermanent. It doesn't all really exist. So this is something we need to investigate by looking inside our own mind. So when we look inside our own mind, we can see that it is something that is beyond those, that transcends these four extremes. And awareness, self-manifesting awareness, is free from any defects, and because it cannot be investigated in terms of existence, non-existence, or outer or inner.
내가 가르치러 갖다 줘 요래. 그럼 코로 잡아지나. 대답을 심싸워요 보가면. 대답을 심싸워들라. 재미만 버점만 그지. 그것도 뭐 공주를 재미만 버터 김바 매바 같이 좀 심싸워 매바 양. 재미모 봐 동네 강에 chen 심싸워 매가 차로 그러. 어때니? 진짜 봐지 대고요 봐. 그것도 좀 그렇겠나. 재미 멤버 좀 재마 매와 이 처음에와 일제라서가 이 요장들이 선싸워 매봐 유모배 접속나 삐강이네 배나 쳐다 하장 다모이나 장소 집이 쳐 용만 매설이 장소 같이 땡서는 남이 속사탕이 통근도 앞에 속사탕이 통구요 신용용들이나 용마지 배나 용마지 저 직장 하고 말아 배리 작은 오마 따라서 직장 하고 말이야 배에서 그랬더니 로바탕이 접종 코비세 지도 sem이제 이 건설하고 독대다고 요장을 되니 저밖에 접종을 대대요 말이지 재미만 버더막 제만 매와더니 말을 봐 또는 말을 좀 말이요 말이지 되니 그래서 항상 좀 막고 이것도 이적도 좀 것들 용통제도 잘해 항상 좀 막고 항상 좀 막고 내가 싸우 되라 대비야 스스로 직장 하다 메스 그거 싸우 되라 담을 사각식 통화 당 기용을 새 사각식 통 선남과도 남과를 지지고 봐야 돼 스스로 직장 하다 메스 너무나 차와야 메스 도미 시바랑 종라 시바랑 종이 도미지나 뭐 치마가 따와 이러면 우리 말이 선에 샤워들 이제 또 오면 이제 봐요 말이지 이제 오면 도미 시바랑 종라
Then it says, is not defiled by the darkness of unmindfulness. So Samantabhadra's mind or Buddha nature is not defiled by the darkness of unmindfulness. So Buddha nature is always present. This is our true nature. And for example, often the mind becomes very clear, very undefiled when we, for example, are very afraid, when fear arises or an emotion like anger arises. The mind is very clear. When the mind is very clear, then we very precisely can engage in any kind of activity. Even in a samsaric sense, there's a state of very clear mind in certain circumstances. So this clear mind in this moment is not defiled by the darkness of unmindfulness. And so on the ultimate level, that is the mind of Samantabhadra. It is not defiled. So for example, in the case of samsaric sentient beings who are unmindful, who are defiled by the darkness of unmindfulness, it is because they encounter difficulties and they are afflicted, they have many emotions in their mind, and that makes their mind be very unclear. And so that is what obscures their mind. And Samantabhadra's mind is not obscured by that. And there is no sense of unmindfulness, of not recognizing. So actually that mind is always there in the mind of all beings, but their mind is obscured by their afflictions, so it is unclear. For example, it is like water. If you have think about vast ocean water that is completely undefiled, there is no mud in the water, then even though the ocean might be very deep, you can see all the animals and so on in that water very clearly because it is undefiled. But if you only have a small a puddle of water and it is very defiled, you can see nothing. For example, if you pour milk into a tea, then it becomes completely obscured. You cannot see anything on the bottom. So that's this obscuration. And so although all sentient beings possess this mind of Samantabhadra, this basis of mind, they are obscured by this unmindfulness. So Samantabhadra Kuntu Sangpo himself is never obscured by this unmindfulness, by ignorance. So therefore he is free from defects. He's always free from defects. The nature of mind is always free from defects. And then that clear awareness, so that how is that clear awareness? Then it continues. I, Kuntu Sangpo, abide as intrinsic awareness. Even though the three realms were to be destroyed, there is no fear. So even if this world were to be destroyed, there would be no fear. That it would not affect awareness at all because it always continues to abide like space. And space does not arise and it never dies. It is never destroyed. So there is no fear. And then there is no attachment to the five desirable qualities of sense objects also. And in self-arising consciousness, free of thoughts, there is neither solid form nor the five poisons. So free of thoughts is that whatever arises, there is no any of the sense pleasures, there is no grasping, no thought of their actual reality, their true existence. So for example, there's no thought of this is real or this is unreal and so on. Things do appear, but there is no grasping at them, no holding them to be true at all. There is no dualistic grasping, seeing them as separate objects. So that is this consciousness free of thoughts. And so then there is neither solid form nor the five poisons. So from self-grasping arise the afflictions, and with an afflicted mind we engage in actions, we accumulate karma, and these actions leave an imprint in the mind, and these imprints then leads to the creation of any form in the six realms of samsara. So now we have this body of flesh, blood, and bones, and because we have this body, we can see it is there, we think it is real, it's actually there. And so ultimately, there is no solid form, and therefore also there is no five poisons. So it is only if we follow our afflictions and engage in action, accumulate karma, and then we will experience a real experience of suffering in the three lower realms. So it is called five poisons or poison because these afflictions create suffering, a suffering body. We engage in action, and a result of suffering will ripen.
Rinpoche manga Rinpoche manga simsaudi sacha manga bala ngo chikri singaso Rinpoche simsaudi bekangi pakshir tangma ta di shed tangma di shed la ngo to badr ti ram jig de yuji chi bunga yores Rinpoche yuji nga yores Rinpoche ngo chikri singaso bekangi shen들 이마 보나 자통 나가 가방을 착용을 다 왕거까지 세빙어도 되니 셀은 자통 배속으로 내가 뜻밖다 그래 제가 동동 속으로 제압된다고 셀들 자통 사용은 자통이지 가방 강요래 마도 없이 진상지 오 생자통 되네 셋당 세그라운 이거 하고 오 나한테라 노아를 소시 대동 자마자 내가 박차나마자 내가 우보도 치마리 다시 이제는 고바창 거예요. 야. 그래서 정부터 세우랑이 뭐 하고 랑그랑이 뭐 하고 사지세지 제발대 세우랑이 네 예말하리 밖에 나와 센스 타지 생이 동발 타지 사자집을 당하고 성콘대 나와서 셈게 셈랑 생이 내로 하고서 콘대 이도다 하고 차라리 나와 센스 타지 생이 동발 타지 나와 쉘들 빼자 또 책이랑 상지 세계 소요이 다 하고서는 오 콘대 통제랑 셈지 하고 때문에 오 콘대 통제랑 셈지 역시 세대다 강염을 것도 보다가 나와 저번들 늘 거기니까 가리를 딱 고통을 입고 봐서 이게 이거를 거도 어제 나와 세대 타지 생이 동바 타지에서 이제 승부 용기 좀 아주 세당자 총지도 하고 그래.
And then it says, in the unceasing clarity of awareness, singular in essence, there yet arises the display of the five wisdoms. So this unceasing clarity of awareness, it is like that is singular in essence. That is like a pure, clear crystal, like a crystal ball or so. That is the empty essence of the mind. But that possesses five qualities. So awareness possesses five wisdoms or five qualities. For example, when the sun shines on the crystal, then five colored rainbow lights fill up the room. In the empowerment, for example, when we are introduced to the nature of the mind, this is the example that is given, that of the crystal and the rainbow lights emerging from it. So to those who are intelligent, they can really understand what is meant here, what is shown here. So when the sun shines on the crystal and the rainbow emerges from the crystal, a being who has not realized the nature of that, they will just look at the rainbow and just see the rainbow and see the rainbow is completely detached from the crystal. They will not understand that the rainbow actually emerges from the crystal. They will see it as a separate phenomenon. And so that is when we perceive things in a dualistic manner in the six realms of samsara. And due to our various karmas and imprints, we experience various types of happiness and suffering. And whatever it is that appears, we think that this is real, appearing to us separately from us, just like looking at those rainbows and not recognizing that they're actually a reflection of our own mind. So therefore, a dualistic perception of self and other is what creates samsara. And Samantabhadra's mind, the actual nature of the mind, somebody who has realized that mind, will understand that all that appears is the reflection of one's own mind. So that's the difference between Buddhas and sentient beings. Buddhas recognize that all appearances are the reflections of one's own mind. Milarepa had said, first we must resolve that all appearances are mind, and then that mind itself is emptiness. So this is when we are introduced to the view of Mahamudra. So when we say that all outer appearances, samsara and nirvana, all is the reflection of the mind. And if you understand the nature of the mind, therefore, you have realized the nature of all of samsara and nirvana by only knowing your own mind. Because all appearances are the reflections of your own mind, just like the rainbow lights are the reflections coming from the crystal. So everything is created by the mind. Everything arises from the mind, all of samsara and nirvana. And so some people, for some it is more difficult to understand that, and they cannot understand this because of their own self-grasping. They relate it all to the I. So how is it that my mind has created all of samsara and nirvana? So that seems to be quite foolish to say, and so they would say things like that because they all relate that to only my mind, from a self-grasping perspective. But ultimately, when we recognize the nature of the mind, we can understand that all appearances are made by the mind, and that mind is empty. And that mind is like a crystal ball, a single essence from which arise 5 qualities, just like rainbow lights.
내가 도마 이 생들의 추진이 시 대 남카다를 코데 탐지를 잡 나는 나는 맞잡 남카를 타요 말이야. 남카 체지게 막 빼대다가 콘데 띵요 띵반도 이게 요가 주지 생긴 탐지를 잡대요 이제 잡대지 가르쳐 남카 공부하고 잡대를 추진이 시 잡대받에 마체를 대라 대근 항공을 답답함들라 사족성 같은데라 답고시가 같은 감 라서가 참이 봐 양차용 작동이요 마다번 로를 좀 나와 양차용이 소소 몰라서 봐 단디는 유목을 진세와 그렇게 따라 나와 차용이요 그래서 샤롱을 그래서 좀이 찾더라고 메롱답이 시 거기 나와서 차트에 메롱답이 시 샤와들 동도서 바탕지 내로 동도 바탕지 그 장인 지도 따와요 메롱답이 시바 메롱을 좀 찾아 메롱 그게 내가 좀 되고 되고 요 말이 이디가 또 봐요 말이 왜 이실라 메롱답을 찾아요 가서 코바를 요래 zamoro 차는 바로 당 차단 또 봐야면 오 추진이야 다다 내가 통성 사실은 저만의 애들이 메롱답이 시 추진이지 시 메롱답이 시 샤디 같은 또 매배 우상이 가르쳐나 또 매배 양반이 지시 이제 또 매장 고대가 싸워서게 주제 신 게임이 똑같이 되는 콘데기 대독통이 내가 최초를 따라 적용고요. 콘데기가 적용고리 답과를 거다시 감마다 도와를 도고 최초를 따라 적용 거지. 이 랑지를 적용하면 수저 좋아요 말이. 저기는 다 저기를 적용고요. 저와 저의 시스. 이 신가 딱딱한 창고요. 답과를 신가 차이는 거를. 그리고 좀 마다 봐라. 이 신가들 무엇은 치면도 마셔도 다 유몽만 결정을 해. 다복감이 신가들 마다 박은 유몽바가 유몽마다 유왕아 다 차요. 예외다 생유왕아 생진은 그 유몽아 다과 사지 거 당신하는 이 신가들 선진 들어와요. 대유배들이 다다 누지 그저 생진 상지 생주고 유몽과 당신 촉단 잡으는 데다고 세상다 타도 촉나 그래서 누진지 라서 왔던지 조왕아들이 누가들 가지 요한 거를 별로 맞아 나고 세상 친구는 차네 너 차를 가면에 내 나차 당시 유모가 이제 차만 좀 했더니 너는 이게 당시 몇대가 진짜와도 싫어 오 당근에 잡으는 생긴 당시 유모가 다고 촉 생긴이 그거 유몽 중화상 생중왕아상 이 이걸 사지에 담지 사정 이 시간에 되면 어디서 팽개고 촬영 거를 进这话的哈光的大的，也到的一性啊就是买的呗，哈光到过场景个各种性个一性啊，马达不是经常的女梦啊，圣女王啊，女王啊，要女王啊，人对吧？有女王的，这上去一些家庭大家的照顾了的，这个一性啊部门把的他们常见的啊说，一性啊这类的，他没说了，他家娃的啊说，这类的各大银行常委把这里照顾了的，他啥就把这里照顾了的。
So then there's these 5 wisdoms. So the first of these 5 wisdoms is the Dharma Dhatu wisdom. That is this space-like, all-pervasive nature of the mind. And so it pervades everything, samsara and nirvana. There is nothing that is not pervaded by it. So it is boundless, limitless. It has no limits. So it is all-pervasive. And therefore it pervades everything, samsara and nirvana. And in samsara it pervades the animate and inanimate, that is the universe and all the sentient beings. So this space-like, all-pervasive quality of the mind, that is called the Dharma Dhatu wisdom. And then from this nature arises the countless Pure Lands and Buddha manifestations from the quality of bodhicitta. From an impure perspective, the 6 realms of samsara, the 3 lower realms, and so on appear. And these are the reflections arising from self-grasping and the various afflictions. So whatever appears then is like a reflection in the mirror. Anything can be reflected in a mirror. The mind is like a mirror, and anything can be reflected, samsara and nirvana. And that is the second one, a mirror-like wisdom. Anything appears within the mirror. And so that is, from the perspective of the mirror, there is no thought about the reflections. Anything, good or bad, anything can appear. There is actually no concept of good and bad in the mirror. The mirror doesn't think, I want this kind of reflection, but I don't want that kind of reflection. There is no such a dualistic perception from the side of the mirror. Anything can be reflected within that mirror. So that is the mirror-like wisdom. And so then that is a non-dual wisdom. There's no grasping at this positive or negative and so on. So that is in samsara, we have preferences. We are attached to what we call good, and we have an aversion against what we call bad. And so we have many thoughts of attachment and aversion against many things, because we see things as actually truly existing things. But from the perspective of somebody who has seen the true nature of the mind, there is no such a perception. There is no distinction between whatever appears. So that's the mirror-like wisdom. And so then, because there is no grasping, no thought about whatever appears to it, there is great equanimity with regard to whatever appears. And that is the wisdom of equanimity. So things appear, but there is no grasping to whatever appears. It's all the same. So then, however, there is also a clear, discerning awareness that although all is the same, it still clearly knows that virtuous thoughts or non-virtuous thoughts lead to the precise ripening of happiness and suffering. So that is the discriminating wisdom that sees clearly the karmic results, the consequences of various thoughts that arise, although there is equanimity. And whatever arises then, whatever ripens, only exists temporarily, just like a bubble in water. So temporarily, the 6 realms of samsara manifest on the impure level. From the pure perspective, the Pure Lands and the Buddha forms appear. And then they appear naturally. Nobody creates them. Nobody makes them appear. They naturally appear. And so this natural appearance, appearing from the interdependence of causes and conditions, is what we call the all-accomplishing wisdom. And so these 5 wisdoms are complete within awareness, the nature of the mind. From a pure perspective, they are referred to as the 5 wisdoms. From an impure perspective in the mind of sentient beings who holds things to be true and really existing, then they manifest as the 5 afflictions. So on an impure level, we have the 5 afflictions in the minds of beings, and on the outer level, the 5 elements. And these are related to their pure aspect, the 5 wisdoms. They're all related to one another. So the elements and the afflictions are related. So therefore, for example, when the afflictions arise, when the mind of sentient beings becomes disturbed by anger, hatred, by jealousy, then that naturally affects the outer 5 elements in this world, and then the elements cause harm, and also cause harm to the elements of one's body. For example, hatred, anger has a quality of heat, so that creates illnesses related to heat, or attachment creates illnesses related to cold, and so on. So these are real experiences then that come from the disturbed inner mind that negatively affects the outer 5 elements. And these are related to the 5 wisdoms of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. That is, when gradually, when the mind matures and ripens, then those 5 afflictions ripen into the 5 wisdoms. So these groups of 5 are all related to one another, and that is because they all arise from this single ground, this single basis. So then it says, from the ripening of these 5 wisdoms, the 5 original Buddha families emerge. When these 5 wisdoms ripen, when the afflictions have transformed into wisdom, and when these wisdoms ripen, then from these arise the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, the 5 Buddha families. And then in turn from these, then appear the countless Pure Lands and Buddha manifestations, or what we call the various deities. From the ripening of these 5 wisdoms, the 5 original Buddhas emerge, and through the expanse of their wisdom, the 42 peaceful Buddhas appear. So first the 5 wisdoms, from these 5 wisdoms, the 5 original Buddha families emerge. And so then they multiply. So that is from each of these 5 wisdoms is combined, can be combined with all of the 5 wisdoms. So from each of the 5 wisdoms, the other 5 wisdoms emerge. So this is easier for us to understand if we look at it from the impure perspective of sentient beings. It happens also with the afflictions. From one affliction, all the other 5 afflictions arise. They're in a way they're mixed with one another. For example, when you get very angry, there's different forms of anger. There is the anger that comes from desire, or there's a real anger that is just aggressive anger. For example, you want to kill somebody, or there is a prideful anger. You want to gain victory over someone in a contest, for example, or there is the jealous anger, and so on. And they all are supported by ignorance. Ignorance is to think that it is fine to have these afflictions. It's good to have these afflictions because we think that we must defeat our enemies and we must protect our friends. Just according to the 37 practices, it is thoughts of attachment and aversion towards our enemies and friends. So we think that it is all right to have those afflictions, those emotions. But it is not all right, because by following them, we are creating the karma of much suffering in many future lifetimes in the 3 lower realms. That is when these afflictions begin to ripen. So from each of these 5 afflictions, from one affliction, the other 5 afflictions can arise. So they all can be combined with each other from an impure perspective. And then the same is true from a pure perspective. Each of the 5 wisdoms can be combined with each other. So then the 5 wisdoms become the enlightened body, speech, mind, the qualities and activities. And then they multiply more and more. So a great variety of deities appears. So here it says first there is the 42 peaceful Buddhas. So then they multiply as they combine with each other. And we have the 100 peaceful and wrathful deities and so on. They multiply, and there's countless Pure Lands and Buddha manifestations. So that is from a pure perspective. From an impure perspective, the 6 realms of samsara manifest in many infinite ways, depending on whichever of the affliction arises. For example, in general, we say that ignorance leads to birth as an animal, or desire leads to birth as a human. And so each subtle affliction, each emotion is manifests in a certain manifestation of samsara, so in various different forms. For example, a poisonous snake and a human being. But their mind is still exactly the same. So why are their bodies separate then? It is because the poisonous snake, for example, is the natural reflection, the embodiment of anger or hatred. So each of the afflictions manifests then in a certain way. So this is how we should understand the way in which causes ripen into results when they encounter certain conditions, so that we can understand from a pure perspective and also from an impure perspective. But when we first look at the impure perspective on how they are combined, looking at our own mind, we can also then finally understand how the same principle is applied to the pure perspective.
랑종 르바 오시니 시체모 타제쇼 랑종 르바 오신송차나 딱 사지가 거당시 한 롱주 오거든 나도 롱주도 고심 하지 시체모 타제쇼
And so then it says, and then the 42 peaceful Buddhas appear through the arising power of the 5 wisdoms, the 60 wrathful Herokas manifest. Thus the ground awareness is never mistaken or wrong. And then this ground awareness has never been mistaken or wrong, is that it has never been confused or deluded. That is, the mind of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas does not grasp at a duality, does not perceive a duality, so therefore it is undiluted or never mistaken or wrong. But then they also see that those sentient beings who have not realized that, they experience actual manifest suffering. And therefore they feel great compassion. So this is a prayer of great compassion. So I, Gondo Sangpo, am the original Buddha of all, and through this prayer of mine, may all you beings who wander in the 3 realms of samsara realize this self-arising awareness, and may your great wisdom spontaneously increase. So may you recognize self-arising awareness, and so all those beings in the 3 realms. So in the three realms we have said is the desire realm, the form realm, and the formless realm. And all these beings in those realms have a single basis of mind. The mind is a single basis. They only must recognize their own self-arising awareness. And when they recognize that, then their great wisdom will spontaneously increase. So then they will be able to enjoy the countless pure lands in a form of Sambhogakayas.
타고 사지가 공부할 때 인장다다 별로 대사 양이 제면 삼지나 대사랑 그 줄은 양용지 따불래 줄이 하고 상인데 대사 줄었지 그랬더니 최근 내록라 대사 건 대나 그래도 유몽지 세탐지 유몽지 실존으로 유몽이 실존으로 되와지 유몽 제로 직발에 유몽 세지도 남들 봐 양이 제니다 양이 제면 삼지 유무고 기록적 봐야지 인랑 대사비 끼리 유무고 랑기메 봐 라고다 셈 내르고 나지 님에 하고 내 얘네들이 대를 지어왔더니 내가 로를 끼는지네 이 피주 시당당 사도라서 와지어 하고 이 지와지 레서를 되게 동의 줘야 봐 하고 하고를 랑기를 쳐달라는데 도도리 시청과 타지 줘도 유몽이 실적 타고요 그러는 생통 제보되구나. 매잡들 생통도 더 매력적으로 그래서 남인이 이제서 유몽이 실행절, 이미 도서절, 등의 대화를 줬다. 대사를 이 시점 타지나 대사를 에서 시점 타지쇼 유몽과 탐지고 등의 탐지들 대화를 줄 대사를 해서
So may your great wisdom spontaneously increase, is that, so here now we are talking about this ultimate intent or the enlightened mind of this Buddha, but also now from a practical perspective, for a practitioner, we can gain an experience in that. So first we need to understand the workings of karma, and then cultivate love and compassion, and then we meditate, looking at the nature of our mind. And then when we do that, we can gain an experience to transform all the afflictions that arise into wisdom. So the afflictions still arise. The way they arise is still the same. So the afflictions arise in the mind of a yogin, a normal practitioner, in the mind of any sentient being. So the way in which they arise is the same. They do arise, but then a yogin, a practitioner, will recognize that these afflictions lack any true self-existence, any inherent true existence. So they recognize that they are non-dual from the mind, so that there is no dualistic perception of self and other in their mind. And they recognize, therefore, that whatever arises, whatever affliction or thought arises, is just a temporary arising due to some temporary condition. For example, when anger or jealousy arises, they understand that it only arises like in this moment, momentarily, and due to some condition. But only if they hold on to it and accumulate karma, will there be a result of suffering, ripening. So they understand that, and therefore they can let them go and liberate them, just like a wave dissolving back into the ocean. So this is how they transform afflictions into wisdom. For example, if you have a heap of wood and you light fire, then in an instant, no matter how much wood there is, it all transforms into fire. So that is the quality of engaging in actual practice. Through practice, we can transform all negative circumstances into a positive circumstance, into support to our practice. Or we can transform all suffering into happiness. And so we can transform all afflictions, all problems that arise into happiness.
또 출근은 같이 고이시요. 저들이 남과 코슨 손어대 코 사자를 나게라고 들이. 너희들이 저러들이 들이 셔도 손들이 또 속차 잡으면서 나긴 이유다. 이따 차요 거를 이따가 다 이디는 되는 코아서 또 조금 가르치거든. 니디 매 봤다며. 니디 또 낭생이 니디 시 나딘 시고 나딘 가르치고 인피로 시고 요래. 인피로 나딘 시고 쉽지 탐지 핑고선 핑이 있잖아. 이는 핑시를 랑을 핑요리다. 사지 남보다 하고선 나 이는 제와절 나를 핑도 없어. 나를 피고서는 남양 핑이요 말. 나를 피고서 다 무쇠들 쪽톡고요 말. 소소소 쪽고 삼세를 내가 제거지. 내니 봐도 키우는 쪽톡고요 말 강하면 쳐놓으요야. 다를 쳐셔도 수쪽톡고요. 대리면 다 레레샤. 레제 가리 가장 레 상을 나지 상거 독상 이 맥지 쳐요. 사제도 보고 배제도 저자양 생기 저지 생기 이거 조금 공식이구나. 그러니까 생기 제발 때 저기 나디 최종 나디 치와서 생기 이회로 치와서라 나도 먹고서 그때다가 좀 제가 찾아 싸면 이제 강도 나서 탑 강라 같은 로를 생기 담배라 다 강을 가면 조금 나와서 좀 그거에 기와 좀 보고 로트 보고 나서 좀 보고 나 저도 보고 tan가서 그러다 니 tan가 마음이 니수 가르치겠어. 니 말이 내가 안 되지와 내가 안 되지와 생긴데 장라 고발이 사진이만 내가 지와 이 하고요라 로지 상질이나 예 저거도 지는데 다 조금 저기 내가 가르치거든. 이 하고는 이 소소를 배는 거래. 이 하고요래. 말고 맥매비를 맥치요래. 야, 강바면이면 강바죄가 나게 됐다고 해서 세와 잡자 삼이지 강도 나서 동서.
So then it says, so my emanations will continuously manifest in billions of unimaginable ways. So from this like space-like nature of which is the Dharmakaya, then appear the Sambhogakayas, which are like clouds or rainbows, and then Nirmanakayas like raindrops. For example, they appear in the human world. Nirmanakayas appear in the human world. For example, beings like His Holiness the Dalai Lama or other bodhisattvas that we know by name, or also those that are unknown. There are actually countless bodhisattvas appearing anywhere in all of the realms of samsara. So here there is this measure in billions of ways, but actually it is measureless. There are incalculable appearances, manifestations of the Buddha. Basically, wherever there are sentient beings, there are manifestations of the Buddha, to tame those to be tamed. And so then actually, so here it says appearing in forms to help you beings who can be trained. So what is the difference actually between those who train and those to be trained? So those who train are, for example, our teachers, our spiritual teachers, and they also are human beings. So the difference lies within the mind. For example, His Holiness the Dalai Lama is also a human being, but then his mind is different than the mind of sentient beings, of ordinary sentient beings. And so, for example, an ordinary sentient being, like a person, for example, they cannot even care for themselves. They drink and smoke, for example, and then even if they encounter just the slightest problem, they are overwhelmed and they have no way to become free to deal with it. Many even commit suicide. So it comes ultimately down to ignorance, the karma of unmindfulness. So that is the difference between those who tame or train and those to be trained. So on the human level, for example, they are the same, but their mind is different. And then they do not only appear in the human realm, they appear anywhere in the 6 realms of samsara. For example, we talk about the 6 Buddhas, the 6 forms of Buddha Shakyamuni appearing in the 6 realms of samsara. But then it's not even only 1 or 2 numbers of Shakyamuni, there's actually countless. There are as many sentient beings as there are, wherever there are sentient beings, there are emanations of the Buddha. There are countless emanations of the Buddha. And so how do the Buddhas see sentient beings? Actually, the Buddhas see sentient beings, those to be trained, also as nirvana kayas, because all phenomena have the nature of the 3 kayas. So those who have realized the view of enlightenment, those who have realized the nature of their mind, to them there is no distinction, there is no separation between those who train and those to be trained. They're all nirvana kayas. Like the Buddha had said, beings are only temporarily obscured. So this temporary obscuration is only self-grasping, which is like a block of ice floating on the ocean. So this is what makes us temporarily sentient beings, which do not really actually ultimately exist. And so for the time being, when we are in this state of being an ice block, for example, we think, I am a Buddhist, or I am not a Buddhist, I am this or I am that, I am something, we are something. And so actually to the Buddhas, all beings are nirvana kayas, because all beings have a mind, and that mind is the same. Not one is better, not one is worse. That mind is Buddha nature, and all beings have that mind. And also beings without a body have that mind, that Buddha nature. The Buddha said, within all sentient beings is the Buddha. That is the mind of the Buddhas. And so from the perspective of samsaric sentient beings, they do not recognize that. So due to this I, this perception of an I, the I has to be something. We label ourselves, I am this or I am that. And that is due to our dualistic perception of self and others, and our grasping at the concrete actual reality of various appearances. But if you understand that this is not the reality, this I does not exist, then the mind just naturally calms down and relaxes. Otherwise, we cling to this idea of I, and once there's this I, it always has to be something. It labels itself, and that separates, it divides more and more. For example, within religions, we say, I'm a Muslim and he is a Christian, so that separates us. And even within Buddhism, we separate and we say, I'm Sakya follower and he is a Gelugpa, so we separate that. And then within one lineage, we separate, and so on. And the more we grasp at the I, the more of this separation we create. And then it becomes more and more small, more and more subtle. So we become just like, the more we grasp at the self, the more subtle will be our body, for example, like a little creature. So it is all created by this dualistic grasping to self and others. That is what creates all appearances of samsara. So from the perspective of the Buddha manifestations, within their minds, there is no such a dualistic perception. So then understanding that, there is no thought of I'm a Buddhist or this or that. All of that falls apart. So in order for that to be accomplished, we first must let go of our self-clinging. And that we do by cultivating an altruistic mind. Always have the wish to benefit other sentient beings. And actually, when you have a wish to benefit others, that is actually your own greatest benefit. So somebody who really understands the Buddhist view correctly knows that if I want to benefit myself, I really must have a wish to benefit others. Because for as long as I am wishing for my own benefit, I will never actually get that benefit. For as long as I only want to protect myself, I can never be protected, because negative karma will always come back to me. For example, our house catches on fire and there's nothing we can do about it. Or we fall down a cliff, or we die we drown in water, and so on. So karma comes back to us. And so in order to clear the way, we must first clear away self-grasping. And so again, both those who train and those who those who are to be trained sentient beings are actually all Nirmanakayas. The only difference is a slight difference of the mind. Some have self-grasping, and others have an altruistic mind, but they all are Nirmanakayas. And so they appear in forms to help you beings who can be trained in various different ways in the 6 realms of samsara, in many different manifestations of Nirmanakayas. For example, there is the created Nirmanakaya, there is the incarnated Nirmanakaya, there is the manifold Nirmanakaya. For example, the created Nirmanakaya is the creation of a tanka or a statue, for example. And so it is a Nirmanakaya because when we see that, then we understand something about them. For example, when we see this image of a tanka, of a deity, then we know what this Buddha had done in this lifetime, what activities for sentient beings and so on they have done. So when we look at their stories, then we can understand what this particular one has done. And that will surely be to our benefit. So in this sense, they are also Nirmanakaya manifestations. And so what they do to help us beings who can be trained is they open our eyes to the workings of karma. They give eyes to those who do not have eyesight. They clear away their ignorance. And they give legs to those who cannot walk and so forth. Can we take a break for 30 minutes?
Om Ahom. ngāya krupa yunmen che sewa chabja samyen ji song ni zongde kora pipa chenpo yore tata so pacheka sangma ji gondra tang tangka rama tang jenda ta zuma re se o di sanji ka re ja re sang re di sang go ye di za ne ma re ni ke dong che ke yore di sanji nam jin shi chi ba de lo nang ji de 산지가 용지 마시는 데니 어떤 데에서 동 마시는 데다 사람이 봐야 미로하리 되는 거 욕투고요 말이 동시나 니봐야 데다 요래 너나 데가이 생구시래 너 말하지 주나던데 이는 너 버тер을 하더니 송 되는 데다가 조금 동시에 당 소원에다 근데 다 갖고다 가리나 빨리 무슨 밑에 와서 이래 내 요게 되니다가 저 아티샤다 제라서 봐 오늘 사주 서로 살이도 같은 게 샤르지 롱동 내가 제일 요래 그러니까 뭐 룸거 봐를 이렇게 자랑 정상 시대 영국 고르스데 공초는 되게 무슨 롱디버 정상 시대 고마워라 저좀 초절령 봐 영국 공초 예전에 무슨 사실 공부도 소자를 뭐지 봐 가자가 난 거요 해 마크 가시를 많이 받은 게 필요해 다요 말에 그래서 타가 거라지 무슨 정책이요 해 여기 대시선을 안는 나나 그다 충충되구나 어떻게 했더니 사지가 덜 제교 가리 그리고 저 그다 충충을 찍거든 사지를 있었는데 사지가 연진생이 되고요 사지 지석이 맞아 사지 지석이 지지 취지석이 맞아 오 레좀 제시요 이렇게 레좀 제시만 한 거요 사지 가리를 준비하려고 그랬지 여기 그거랑 그 사정 생겨 저고요 이 제외 단지를 인포한 거요래 이랑게 세우는 가리나 사지 인상되나 이 사지 쇼가 단지요 말이 됐다더니 핀섭좀 배쳐본 거요래 조트버거서 이 기와트버거 이 다다 라마트 게비시니 주보 체계요 말이 저쪽으로 들리적되는 사지가 주던 거요래 일단 다 친구가 딱히 당나야 들리는 야보 rum보 이 적체대요 콜요 요리 혼자 맞아그 요리 들어도 맞아그 요리 도마들 서봐 무슨 미시면 콘솔에 대다고 거름 이런 무슨 내난지 적인 감 내난지 초라세 거로 kiến 요리 대상계는 사지 봐 팩토크 요리 군독군이 대상계 람도니 요리 접대시는 오 사지 봐 미사요 말이지 탐체를 첩 요리 있어는 이 서로 샘대 자체모 대리진이 됐다 등록상중에다 마다바리 상들이 같이 인지치 못지 등록들이 그거 동해리 상고요 그것도 레다 차 다서는 이 고소야 타와요래 이렇게 마다바리 내 갑자기 전처럼 저거 먹고 하고 계단을 하고 계단에 유목을 하고 그래 유목을 내 장군 고소 샘대식이 뭐 돌아도 요 말이 대리진이 들자그 생기 상행지기나 대리냐도 다낭들이 사지를 봐 생기 등에서 갖고 왔고요. 얘도 이 선배들 자체모 차로로래 조금 너무 지나 다 소트 보고를 트인 잡아 녀마 나와 들이 동안 말아서 같은지 란지 적는 거예요. 자와트고 시이소 대통령 이제 상적 생을 적용되라 대리 생기선때 피바다 대외적 요구를 해. 이 유무 받은 데는 그냥 대해도 봐가 이제 안 그런 한문이더니 이 유무 받은 데는 사게 살로 저게 절로 没老说我们中华人你把当个就是让人个就成为了啥了真中国人们一里这里中华的大话也是这趟就跟中华的这把大人这个红是他们都有的上这下可能是小车的上面就刚刚的那做东你能被拆但是不卡表的是咱们不有的
One second, I need to fix something there. And so we just talked about before like how those beings appear in forms to help beings who can be trained. And so we have mentioned the created Nirmanakaya, like the tankas or the statues and so on. And so actually it's very beneficial to understand the meaning of all that, because often when people see a tanka or statue and so on, they think that this is like unreal. This is like not a real, the real Buddha. So they think it's like just something made out of like some kind of metal, like copper and so on. But this is actually really not true, because these Buddha forms also benefit beings. They perform a function. So they appear in many ways from the all-knowing wisdom of the Buddha to tame beings. And so, so those who understand that this is actually a Buddha will understand the quality that can come from that. Of course, those who do not understand that, they will also not then receive their blessings and their power. So those blessings cannot enter their minds. But if you really understand what they really are, that you see them as Buddhas, then all the powers and blessings of the Buddhas will also come to you, because it is an activity of the mind. So it depends on your way of the way you view things. It is said that all phenomena depend on this condition. The arising of all phenomena depends on causes and conditions and depend on one's own way of viewing it, one's own aspiration. So therefore, if you view them as the actual emanation, a form of the Buddha and Nirmanakaya, then a tanka or a statue, for example, really become that. For example, I really see them as the deity, and I feel like great love, the love of the deity. For example, there were stories about, for example, Atisha or other great bodhisattvas who actually saw the form of the deity, and then the deity spoke to them, gave them a prophecy. So it actually performed a function. Or for example, there was this image, a Tara image, that Sogyal Rinpoche distributed. And this particular Tara image was said to directly speak to great masters like Chamyang Khyentse, Kongtrul Rinpoche, and also the previous Tsongsa Khyentse, and also the Dertun Chugyo Lingpa, and so on. And so in the past I had a few of those pictures which I gave to some disciples, but now we don't have any more of them. But this is for an example of a tanka, an image that actually also performed the activity of the deity. Or for example, if you have a small Buddha statue in your home, it can actually perform a Buddha activity, because whenever you see it, you think of the Buddha, you think of the qualities of the Buddha. And when you think of the Buddha, you think of the Dharma. You remember, what did the Buddha teach? The Buddha taught karma, cause and effect, and so on. So you begin to think about that. And that can then place the mind of bodhicitta into your mind, which again is the antidote to self-grasping. So it is not just a statue made of metal like gold or so, but actually it performs a function, an activity. And later, when you die, you will die without any self-grasping, only due to the statue in your home. So the benefit is really inconceivable. That is a created Nirmanakaya. Then there is the incarnated Nirmanakaya, for example, appearing in the form of the guru, the spiritual teachers, but not only that, actually, they can also appear in the form of animals, for example, in any form. Scientists nowadays also observe the behavior of little animals, for example, ants or insects, and they have a whole system, just like people. They have, for example, a king, they have some ministers, they have some retinue, and they have servants and so on. They fight wars and so on. They make a living. So these things are things we didn't know before, but they do things just like we do things. And so therefore also to them, according to their capacity, the Buddha can appear and show them an appropriate path, a method to them on the relative level. So in brief, there is no place where there is no Buddha. The Buddha really pervades everywhere. Buddha's mind is vast. So some people, when they see an animal, they see the animal as, from an impure perspective, as a poor, suffering being. So they cultivate compassion when they see the suffering of the animals. But then also they are actually pure by nature. Whenever their karmas and imprints are purified, they also will become liberated. Right now they are the manifestation of their own afflictions, hatred and ignorance and so on, the reflection of afflictions. But when that affliction and those karmas are purified, their Buddha nature still is the same. It has not changed in the slightest. So if you see it in this way, then you will see all beings, those to be trained and those who train, in a pure way, as Nirmanakayas. And you will also understand that Nirmanakayas, Buddha forms, can appear in many different ways to benefit sentient beings and can perform actual activities on different levels. And then there is the manifold Nirmanakaya that appears in many different ways. For example, the clouds and the rain and the sun and the moon, the 5 elements, all of these natural occurrences, they naturally exist. Nobody creates them. That is also the all-accomplishing wisdom. And a natural creation of bodhicitta that appear to benefit sentient beings. And then, of course, because they are related to our own mind, if we are afflicted, then also those elements cause harm. For example, there's earthquakes or harm caused by water and fire and so on. And that harm is then experienced as the collective karma of beings. However, on the basis, by nature, they are actually pure. The 5 elements by nature are pure. Everything that appears has the nature of a Nirmanakaya. So that is all shown in this line here, appearing in forms to help you beings who can be trained in many billions of different ways. So just this line here actually has a very profound meaning.
我第一早呢，上去长没把这上去，干把长没把它上手出的头几天呢，上去干把长没把路说给上了，上去就对了，我讲了，第二把这个的，这个第二说错了一起个的，叫个，我了都他们去，讲我你搞个东西干的，他从上去光盘找他吧，接到了陪你那个一起个的，有别的那个做法干。做他们的，然后我们做上，然后做上，呀，马上就把你做上，咱们出去听到我就把家里男人拿这个家可能山里面个面的，他个都，也到那天我们我说男人拿这个东上，小米妈妈个面的，家看我们可能都就把这讲，俺人在这接送，俺这就可以个马些的，我就那么出去做上，呀，那个的了，看把这个说没对了嘞，俺嘛都这样没得，俺老穷啊有嘞，看把这个差价，真他妈叫他们问那里，那人俺他送，也没人俺他送，呀，这个真正啊说听见叫嘞，他就做错了哟嘞，我们就把他们这个好人们说听见叫人吃一把的，到个就把你叫送去，到哪送去，两点的，那么说等点的交通，这里他都不成的，他工作中说话，他罗马说话，他就是那个面的罗马通呀，说说不过面的罗马通是吧？说也记录呗，说得到叫那这叫做那个样的，这个这罗马家庭，种种人我讲的，但不是话呢，你就我的，这个说了，我是查那个头，这个八就说了这个样的，到个罗马通的。说一些有人你把这都有的我是，看个照对吧？是满意吧？只不过用的这到有的，他家是吧？他家是吧？要就帮我写有，那这种就做错了，我都给他文化写过来。实际上现在就做这把这一些接触过来，这把一些经说了评个的，这一些经在评个我评个，这把一些嘛经呢。其他评个嘛，下个星期用的嘛，这个这么够用的，好玩呀，我来。
And then it says, through my compassionate prayer, may all of you beings who wander in the three realms of samsara escape from the 6 life forms. So through this compassionate prayer, so in the Buddhist practice, anything is accomplished through this aspiration, actually by virtue of 3 powers. Our aspirations, our prayers are accomplished, first of all, through the power of one's own way of thinking, one's own thought. That is, our trust in karma and our trust especially in the cause of bodhicitta, and also faith, one's own faith and devotion. So that is the power of your own mind. And then secondly, the power of all the Buddhas of the 3 times. What is their power? There are countless Buddhas that have appeared in the 3 times. It is said in the Great Liberation Sutra that there are as many as there are sand grains on the river Ganges. So then one might think that all these Buddhas have appeared and now they are not here anymore. But this is not true at all, because their mind is always there. Their Buddha nature, their love and compassion for beings is never lost. It is always there. So their mind of love always pervades. So we bring to mind all the Buddha's love. And then the 3rd power is the power of Dharmadhatu, and that is that only temporarily beings experience various forms of happiness and suffering due to their individual karmas, afflictions. So temporarily they appear separately, but they have a single basis. So temporarily they appear like ice blocks in the water. So through these 3 great powers, I cultivated great trust in the blessings of the Buddhas and their power to protect us. So I personally have great trust, and therefore I can really reach I can access and connect to the love of the Buddhas. And actually, all of us who have entered the Buddha's teachings, we all make the same prayer. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as space, have happiness and the causes of happiness. When we take the refuge vow, for example, we say those words. And it is not just something that we say, but when we say it, we also remember its meaning. And even if we cannot always remember its meaning, at the moment when we read this prayer, we remember the meaning of that. And then we might think, I've taken the refuge vow, so I'm a Buddhist, and therefore I must give love and compassion to all sentient beings. And so I really found that through those three great powers, the deity really is able to protect one, has protected my own life many times. And therefore I have great trust in that. So temporarily we will be protected as in being separate, we become liberated from temporary suffering in the 6 realms of samsara, and ultimately we attain enlightenment. So because I have seen the actual benefit, I supplicate to the deity. And then I trust that the deity will protect me. For example, in my case, the deity protected my life many times. For example, when I was in the war, I experienced the fears of war. My life was protected. For example, there are many veterans from the First or Second World War who were bombarded by weapons from the air and also guns on the ground and so on. And many of them did not die and survived. For example, I myself, at that time in war, I had wondered what happened to me. Why did I not die? It is because I was protected by Tara. For example, why is it that I actually was put into prison? So at that time we were 7 people in my home, but it was only me who actually then was arrested, and I was the youngest one. And so then, however, of many hundreds of people, again I was protected and I was liberated, and I did not die. And for example, I felt very ill at that time, and I was cured from the illness and did not die, or I did not die when there was a famine. I didn't die from starvation, and so on. There were 8 times when Tara protected my life. So many of the older disciples know these stories, so I don't want to waste your time. But it is important to mention because, and we really trust in the deity and supplicate to Tara, for example, there is really a power that can protect you. And that is why I tell my disciples, pray to Tara, practice Tara, because I have found from personal experience that if you do that, she can actually protect you. So therefore, I always tell that to anyone. For example, if you have no job, and then I tell you practice Tara, or if you want to have a child, then I tell you practice Tara, and so on. And I do that because I really trust in that, and because she protected me many times. And also, for example, I had this image of Tara above my pillow, and really had the feeling that she's really there to protect me. Also, once I had the experience that she actually touched my head with her hand from that image. And so this image, and actually, so this was kind of a vision kind of image, and this image then I created and placed above my bed. So it is when you really trust that the power of the deity and the blessings will enter your mind. So it is not only something that we recite verbally, but we also need to understand the qualities of the deity of the Nirmanakaya. For example, appearing in the form of a tanka, a picture. So when we hear these stories, it might benefit us to cultivate trust. So I do not want to waste the time by telling these stories, because many of you know about that. But so we actually need to use this time to speak about meaningful things. But I at least wanted to mention it because it will really benefit you to cultivate trust. And if you trust in that, then it will really come, the deity will really come to protect you, to benefit you. Because if you do not really understand, and if you do not really trust, if you have no real faith, then the deity cannot help you much, even though the deity is very compassionate. but it is also necessary from our part to cultivate faith and trust in the deity. And in order to cultivate that, it is necessary to understand the qualities of the Nirmanakaya.
하고 말이 가시게 내가 가르치고 뜻밭에 담지게 뭐를 독성진 상태에서 나가서 매일었다 차야 유신이 담지게 내가 받은 뭐 담지라 누구의 특화성 걸 남동네 야 잡선도 와서 사ሾ가 생기바가 남동네디 초당하서 남는 쪽을 너도 제기요에 내 담지를 하도나 사지 고마 통해 이동 생기 동지에서 봐 대차를 요래 대 많은 까빠 마디마 대 밤에 밤에 시바 탐피라더니 몇개 통조르지 오 몇개 통화도 것도 다 상원지 봐 남쪽 그 조르지 말아서 봐 자치 봐도 것도 다지 그것도 봐 용조르지 만들어 볼라서 가지고 kimi 내라서 봐 저런 집어나 내 담지를 되는 것도 다 상원됐다 봐 최송이 답변을 세마를 조르지들이 거기서 송시 말아서 봤더니 돈나 오랑으로 빠르 빠참이더니 차도 사고 톡도 봐 대도 도와 초조르진 저방을 그거는 라베네 대상지 동계를 쪽도 봐 그래서 나만한 소리 듣니 도와서 대상지 돌록자다 그러는 다트다는 제대로 갚아면이나 통주 용조 대다 담지게 당고 이제 이한 거 사이를 깨로 막가 자르지는 송좀 사이를 깨는 대로 공부하면 보더니 이 매연이 되니 것도 잡선도 답을 주고 가래더니 내가 난 돌이라고 다도 사지고 방법도 그래 대다 그랬더니 용조 홍조 주절 따뜻한 다다한지 통화한테 많이 강은 적기 좀 탐지했더니 답변상을 태고요래 사람이 송수고 출래더니 라이르지 요래 대다더니 인틀에 제요래 저거 탐지
And so we might wonder, what are actually the activities? What are the enlightened activities of the Buddhas, and what do they actually do? So to help in many unimaginable ways. So these Buddha emanations who appear in the 6 realms of samsara, for example, in the human world, what are the things that they do to benefit beings? In the human world, for example, they benefit, for example, those with fortunate karma. Those with fortunate karma, they are first introduced to the workings of karma, and then they are led on the path to bodhicitta. So they gradually enter the 3 levels of the path of Pratimoksha, Bodhisattva, and Vajrayana. So in this way, they benefit beings of fortunate karmas. And so these are those beings who have attained enlightenment for their own purpose and are then able to benefit other sentient beings. And so then there are those who do not have the fortunate karma, those who are unable to cultivate faith and devotion. And for all those beings, the Buddha had given other skillful means, such as the liberation by seeing. So only by seeing certain syllables, for instance, the seed of liberation is planted in the mind. Or there is liberation by hearing. For example, we hear the sound of Dharma or the mantra, and the seed of liberation is planted. Or there is liberation by tasting, for example, the blessing pills, the mani pills that we eat. So the benefits of these are explained in the Forceful Waterfall Sutra. And then there is also the liberation by touching by the sand of a sand mandala, for instance. For example, when somebody has died and their bones are touched with this sand, then that also plants the seed of liberation for them. And then there is many different other forms. For example, also liberation by like the smell, like incense, for instance, and so on. That also liberates from suffering and plants the seed of liberation. So there's various different forms of liberation. And so how do they then become liberated? So those who lack the fortune, the karmic fortune to cultivate faith, to enter the path, they, for example, when they see something, they see a liberation upon seeing, or they taste liberation upon tasting. As a result of that, first they are born in the worldly God realm, and that is, they become released from the lower realms first. So they are born in the God realm, and they spend there many years, a long time, and after that they are born in the human realm, where they slowly enter the path. They take refuge, they enter the Dharma, and then slowly, temporarily, they are born in the higher realms, and ultimately they attain enlightenment. So this is the purpose of these various forms of liberation, upon seeing, upon hearing, touching, tasting, and so on. And it benefits not only beings with a body, but also without a body, humans and non-humans. It plants a seed of liberation in their mind. And at least when they die, they will not be born in the three lower realms, but be born in the God realm and so on. So such are the activities of the forms of the Buddha that appear to benefit beings. So the way this liberation happens is through the liberation by seeing and tasting and so on. So first, those sentient beings of the three lower realms are caused to take birth in the three higher realms, so they are liberated from the lower realms. And then those who are already in the higher realms, they are first brought on the path of pratimoksha, so they first enter that path. And then all those who have already entered the path of pratimoksha, they are led to the path of the bodhisattvas. And those who have entered the bodhisattva's path, they are shown the path of Vajrayana. And then they have a method to attain enlightenment in a single lifetime. During the empowerment, there is a supplication of the five Dhyani Buddhas, these five vows. And in there it says there's three levels to that. To release those who are not released, to liberate those who are not liberated, and then to give breath to those without breath. So in this a gradual way, the Buddhas benefit sentient beings.
조 평균이나 다 조제인데 다들 내가 연구 말인 좀 자세히 같은 얘기 들은 거 다 조만 봐 직접 보면 말봐 다 조제요래 예들이 다지 않는 게 박차름 just 발행 코어로도 좀 봐도 다지 다라 차 인당 데레들이 티니 공가 nga 가지고 상대지 nga지 카라파마나 인티베 바지도 그만 말을 받을 싹 철석해 버렸어. 저런 차로 그런 자감는 저런 같이잖아. 다른 게 남조로 있는지 wakcha rimji te paren kowa lokten ju kwa song tangpo sebu delok ma to ba ni tela da o torsi ni ji da ji ni song deri ni da la cha ni da jeri ni me da ni to de chan ta kowa ten song ti wakcha rimji te ba ji kala pa ba ni kale sa ti so kare kowa toma mi ba da ba da sa ese.
So then often people ask this question, now where do actually sentient beings come from? And so then here it says, from the beginning you beings are deluded because you do not recognize the awareness of the ground. Being thus unmindful of what occurs is delusion, the very state of unawareness and the cause of going astray. So it is not recognizing the awareness of the ground. We do not recognize our own awareness. So therefore, not recognizing our own awareness, we become unmindful, unconscious. And then with unmindfulness, for example, even if we have some little empty time, we want to use this time to rest or to sleep. We don't want to do anything else. So we are unconscious, unmindful. Then it says, from this delusive state comes a sudden fainting away, and then a subtle consciousness of wavering fear. So then from that state, then we consider our own activities as most important, and therefore a fear arises. We always wonder, what am I going to do? We are afraid, and we are trying to find a way to not experience difficulties. For example, we think, I must work so I don't get hungry, or I must build a house, or I must work so I can care for my family, my children and husband and wife and so on. And I have to do it. It would not be okay not to do it. So of course we have to do that. And so we are concerned about that all the time. And then when it comes to doing our activities that we have to do, we consider ourselves as most important. So we do whatever it takes to benefit ourselves, and we care little about how others are affected by that. If others are harmed by that, it doesn't affect us much. So we consider ourselves as most important. Even between two friends, the self is always most important. And however, that will never lead to the desired happiness or well-being. It always will end in suffering. And then that is because there is no one who doesn't consider themselves as most important. Everyone sees it in this way. So that is unmindfulness, that is ignorance. Ignorance considers the self as most important. And then it says, from that wavering there arises the separation of self and the perception of others as enemies, and then gradually the tendency of separation strengthens. And from this the circle of samsara begins. So this tendency strengthens. This tendency begins with the perception of a self, and then there is an attachment to that self, and naturally an aversion against all the other. Even when we are sleeping, we are always worrying about what am I going to do. And so this ignorance is collected in our mind like snowflakes falling down day and night. It always accumulates in our mind. It accumulates when we are unmindful, when we are ignorant. So it is just like leaving this block of ice in the freezer, and slowly it becomes more and more hard. It tightens up, it solidifies more and more. So how this tendency strengthens is, it begins with not realizing the nature of your mind, and not seeing that nature you perceive as self, and then you perceive self and others. And then there is an attachment to the self and an aversion against the other. And this is where samsara begins. And in terms of timing, when it begins, it has been beginning since beginningless time. Since beginningless time until now, we have been ignorant, have accumulated ignorance, this tendency, stronger and stronger.
유몽 동아 예스 유몽 동아 예로 가려야 되라 매기 당한 유몽 동아 되니까 노차 시당에 똑바로 맞이 가르치 해지 똑바로 지금 녹상 거요 말해서 차 유몽와라 노차 차야 당한들이 좀 좋고 시당 차와지 오빠래 오 다가 내가지 저가 먼저 또목 차와지 점수 이게서 진치 매발용 거요래 단장님 시죠 말라 진치 매발은 진짜 라과는 전에 그래와 라과지 녹차 도바트 라과 시당 다들 저거요래 예를 전에들이 대회들이 다 마음을 다 또 제껴서 또 제껴서 도마고 도바데 시당 도바 순지 손이 노차 도바 제껴 이 창마도 다 탄소네
창마도 그렇지
괜찮든 시당 순지 손이라 노차 제껴라 도마고 도바데
괜찮든 거
저기 저거一些当作我从说说，炒的了这个，你还告诉我，我是当了关马鸡的，咱们在嘛的就这个把看嘞用过的，你还告诉我的，公我差我这些当我的啥，热的，你忙这个了，然后啊从这用到这别说这里炒，你我这些东西的。
Then it says, then the emotions of the 5 poisons develop, the actions of these emotions are endless. So how do the emotions of the 5 poisons develop then? So, for example, when people think about the 5 poisons, they mostly look at their very coarse form. For example, they see attachment is just this coarse form of this desire, or as hatred is just hatred. And then people think, I'm not like that. I do not have a lot of hate. I'm not aggressive, or I do not have a lot of desire, and so on. So I'm not much affected by these afflictions. But this is not really true, because all of the afflictions have a subtle version of themselves. So the subtle form of attachment is our hopes or expectations to accomplish something. I want to accomplish this. This is a subtle form of attachment or desire. And then a subtle form of hatred, for example, is fear. What if I do not accomplish that? And then a subtle form of ignorance is doubt in our mind. And these subtle forms are always in our mind continuously. And as a practitioner, we can pay attention to how these subtle forms of afflictions develop into their coarse form, and how hope or expectations develops into desire, attachment, or how fear develops into hatred, and so on in the end. So we talk about 80 different thoughts of ignorance, the coarse forms of afflictions, and then there's more subtle ones. So there are 7 forms of ignorance. There are 33 forms of like hatred or aggression, and there are 40 forms of attachment. So we have 80 forms of more coarse forms of afflictions. So these are just the coarse forms. So one might think, no, I don't have that. I never have this really powerful hatred or anger in my mind. But you should not think about it in this way, because the subtle forms are always continuously in our mind. They always arise in our mind. So whenever they arise, you should recognize that this has the essence of attachment, or this has the essence of aggression, of hatred, each of those afflictions. So in the more coarse form, we talk about 80 thoughts of afflictions, but then in the more subtle form, we talk about 84,000 different afflictions, and then many more. There are countless afflictions.
That's a thing you interpret, yes. Me married him as a 사진가에 뭐나 그저를 빠랑시 소소 추프지에 준비하면서 말과 사람 생문내로 맞도봐 그래서 나진이고 본진이 되는 쪽으로 그저를 빠랑시 소소 그까지 하고는 가리 그까 용진 가리 빼는 양미시 받으나 양미시 받아 나또 가리 지나 아 아무 나진이 받아서 과차 걔를 집어 또 빠져야 아 중지 이모고 똑같이 양도 싸라 진짜 저 레나 밤에 준비를 기쁘대 봐 이렇게 저 동네에서 좀 소탁은 먹고요 용어 먹고요 이렇게 나중에 뭐 상처서 봐 삼주제를 지네 다 이렇게 소리요 정말 파마리스 지금 말이스 다 상하고 또 되는 진시 오잖아 이게 우리 또봐 진실이 저거 첨으로 장로 공장으로 이게 이거 또봐 이거 카카하고네 이거 뭐 준바장데 찾아라는데 매일로 다이 뭐이 싫은 저 사진 독시 따와서 보지 르방 못이 다 사진 독시 말아 르방 못이 되나 르방 되게 중지하고 좀 유목지마 다 제일 못이 받아게 곧 초라합니다.
And then it says, you beings lack awareness because you are unmindful, and this is the basis of your going astray. Through my prayer, may all you beings recognize your intrinsic awareness. So this basis of going astray, this basis of delusion, is unmindfulness. It is being unconscious of the nature of one's own mind, not seeing one's own true nature. And due to that, there arises perception of self and others, a dualistic perception. And so then may you recognize intrinsic awareness, Rigpa. So what is the quality of like seeing your own true nature? And so those who know how to meditate, who practice, they gain this experience of when a thought arises, whatever thoughts arise, first of all, they know that self and others do not exist, they're indivisible. And then they discern whatever arises, whatever thought arises, whatever affliction arises, and recognize it, and recognize that if I follow this, if I accumulate karma, I follow this, the karma will ripen. So they have, those who know how to practice, they have a trust, a faith in the workings of karma. So they understand the causes of suffering first, and that is the pratimoksha path that abandons the afflictions, understanding the cause, that they are the causes of suffering. And then finally, gradually we understand that the actual root of all suffering is self-grasping, and the only antidote to that is love and compassion. So then they enter the bodhisattva path, where they transform the afflictions. They recognize that all beings have been once parents, and therefore they are not our objects of affliction. It is not appropriate to get angry at them and so on. And then they recognize that even though anger still arises, when there is mindfulness, it goes away. And that is to enter the Vajrayana path. Mindfulness is just like a watch guard that watches what arises. And when it arises, it clearly discerns between virtue and non-virtue. And by recognizing it and not following those thoughts, they disappear just like waves dissolving in the ocean. And that is when they gain the experience that afflictions become wisdom. So we call that the views of Mahamudra Dzogchen, but here we are only calling that recognizing Rigpa, intrinsic awareness. if you recognize with awareness whatever arises, then those thoughts and emotions will naturally dissolve, and they will not cause any feeling or reaction in your mind. They will naturally dissolve by being recognized.
용을 중심이 소마들 다시 수바시라서 담아서 누구가 가리나 저래도 며칠 용을 가제를 갈아서나 마시 못 톡걸이라 무전바데 파야 저보다 혼자서 저리고 데르티니 데다르티니 같이 타와서 그요 이제 대좀씩 갖고 요이제 또 가리고 또 진체에 받아 레도지를 되는 요거 체지사와 찌뿌르 뛰는 다 때문에 뒤니 추지진 강선을 레도지를 되는 거고요. 대녀들 레와테 도차 도과의 시당 다들 중이 밤시 받아 또 도차시도 독좀 냠들 되는 진체가 이제 처음 봐 차이고 거요. 대체 손을 빼야 보여. 제일 이거 가리고 제일 준비해 시키게 봐리. 또 따와 하면 준비해 시키게 봐나. 그래도 어떻게 해요? 왜냐? 뭐 소용이 가야면은 와 받쳐라. 칼이 되시게 동나 받쳐라 따한테 보고만 시키세요. 우발이 못이세요. 가리라 그래. 끼는 건조 같은 리시 도는 거지 레왕 리스 콜. 같이 야요. 동이 치 샤샤를 내리 박 싸우는 직감한 거 고대 그러니까. 그거 건조 같은 리시. 네 운이들이 차비요. 가리리. 고조 가리시요. 고조 줄어. 삼행기다 고조 어디서 나와요. 조제를 대화고는 대비자다 고조. 제가 서만한 그 사마탄 행기를 좀 레체바 진제를 주다다. 이마다는 롱주당 첫전송은 매를 유방은 도장고 동지발라서 토리 용지 제일 토더라. 고조문이 가리는 고조도 산제 나무래. 산제가 주령하고 레체요. 진짜다 주 대비자가 토더라서. 레체 어찌를 고조 가능하다. 땅아 가서 지 비샤 강에만 다 이제 말이 사고 그래서. 너는 그게 레반데. 다들 비샤 마음 제시도 족보를 봐야 다 족보디 총득 이제 내가 잘. 다나 콜콜송이 다 족보자 그래. 콜레리 진짜 야만 콜라설라다. 가좀 다좀 니다 야월 다만이 다 레리 고세 요즘에 제야 요마. 콜라 때지 미 차지르면 줄 때도 때지 메와 차지래. 다 때마신에 다지가는 시당기 다 차도지 다 눈이 콜콜송이 니 비상문이 그날 야요로 하지 그걸 떼고 코 요나 떼고 미나 떼고 무슨 이지칼라 좀 감지 시당송 지다워서 근데 이치나 따다대대 전거리 우는 소라 때려 좀 강남 때려 누가 하면 너 소수 세요리지 뉴왜 세요리지 다 이를 고조 가는 네 약고 뭐삼이 찍자 요면 약고 쌌나요 좀 싸바자도 나와요면 저부터 대성을 해야지 나 레오는 때 접터들이 레면은 접터만이 나 대자 준주요 것이 요즘 이 레를 봐야요 그저 취직이 작은 소소할 때라 나 고조 이 말이 상대 전도 생긴 게 나도 요는 전부 레 야잖아 점라 가가리 만들 레 상무지다 땅거 말아 이 상무지 땅이 이 사월이 내로 그랬지는 상무 땅거 운이 팽거리 이제도 이와 치보지 대만 좀 들어라서 제대로 이게 레지 시선 뒤에 그 비맞힌 거요.
So then, where's it? This ongoing action. So the emotions are endless. Yeah, the actions of these emotions are endless. So for example, we have mentioned that there is these subtle forms of desire. There is hopes, and then there is fear, and so on. And that actually is endless. It always is there in our mind. For example, in a very subtle form regarding food, we hope that we get something good to eat, and then we want to eat that first. We want to eat what we like first, and what we don't like, we put it aside. We don't eat it, for example. And so in this way, we always accumulate these subtle forms of attachment, of aversion and attachment. And so, of course, to recognize all of these subtle forms is very difficult. So what is most important is in all our activities to generally understand that whatever happens is up to my karma. And so these thoughts of attachment and aversion, of hopes and fears are always in our mind, whether we engage in Dharma practice or in a worldly sense, in our worldly activities. We all have these hopes and fears in our mind. And then they develop into attachment and resentment, anger, and so on. And then we are always ignorant because we do not recognize the fault in that. We do not recognize them, but they're always there in our mind. And since they're always there in our mind, they always leave an imprint in our mind. So the tendency becomes stronger, it strengthens. Even if we understand this view of it is our karma, then actually only by trusting in that we can overcome these difficulties of following our subtle forms of hopes and fears. So even if we have not realized the nature of the mind, we can still overcome these tendencies by only trusting in karma. And actually, that is one of the good qualities of the Tibetan people, for example. They really naturally have this view. So that is, they say that's this Tibetan proverb, the same, if I'm happy, it is the kindness of the 3 jewels, and if I'm miserable, it is my karma. And so then there's nothing, when I'm miserable and suffer, there's nothing I can do about it. So then they just let it be. They recognize that this difficulty is my karma, I did that. And knowing that, then they do not think about this further. They just let it be. This is just how it is. And if I'm happy, then it is the kindness of the 3 jewels. So how is my happiness given to me by the 3 jewels? It is because the 3 jewels, what they teach us is you should cultivate and cherish love and compassion. So therefore, if you are happy, then you must have created the causes of happiness in a past life. Cause of happiness is love, and this is what the 3 jewels teach us. So in a past life, you have done something with your body and speech that come from a mind of love, and now you experience some happiness. For example, if you were generous, now you experience, you have wealth, you're rich. Or if you have, because you have observed ethical discipline, you have a precious human body. Or because you have practiced patience, you have a long life, harmonious companions, and a beautiful appearance. So all the qualities of the higher realms come from love. And the one who gave that to us are the 3 jewels. They taught us to cultivate love. And then we followed that advice, we cultivated love, and with a loving mind engaged in actions of body and speech, and now we experience happiness as a result. So therefore we say, when I'm happy, it is the kindness given to me by the 3 jewels. And then also we say, when I suffer, I recognize this to be the force of my own karma. So for example, if you lend a lot of money to your friend, to have a business, for example, but then that business goes down and the friend cannot pay you back. So normally you might think, now he took all my money, I lost all my money, it's his fault. And you might sue him or fight with him. But if you understand karma, you would understand that this is just my own karma. There's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do about it. Even if I fight, there is nothing that can be done because it is my karma. So somebody who doesn't understand that, they will get angry and they will get jealous and they will say, I gave him all this money and now by all means he must pay me back. He must give it back to me. Whether or not he can, he must give it back to me. And if he cannot, then we go to court and we sue them and so on. Actually, this is when we do not understand the workings of karma. For example, when I was in prison, I also recognized that I did that myself with my own afflictions. Therefore, when I'm happy, it is the kindness of the three jewels. When I'm suffering, it is my own karma. And so when we think about it, when we think about karma, there's really no point in having many hopes and fears or expectations, because we do not have so much choice. We have not so much freedom. It is our karma. We want to accomplish something, but whether or not we will be successful depends on our karma. If we do not have the karma, we will not accomplish it, even if we hope we will, even if we expect we will. And if we have the karma, then even if we do not hope for it, we will accomplish it. So we want to accomplish something, but we should not think much about it and just let it be, let the thought be and not think much about it, because it will be determined by our karma. And that goes for our worldly as well as Dharma activities. For example, in our Dharma activities, we may have a hope, I want to serve the three jewels, or I want to benefit sentient beings. So whether or not we can do that also depends on our karma. If I'm able to, if it is my karma and I am able to do that, then I rejoice. But if I'm unable to do that, then it was my karma. So then I just let the thought be and do not think much about it. So if we think about it from this perspective, it actually is quite easy and very beneficial. Because otherwise, if we cannot think in this way, then our subtle hopes and fears, our expectations develop into great afflictions. And when our hopes are not accomplished, oftentimes people even commit suicide. So really, only to understand the workings of karma is very beneficial.
동해 삼지 유몽을 내사자과 이 참아들 방모시비 좀 tipore 되는 꾸지 르방모시쇼 르바랑시쇼 소마죠 니까 뭐는 잡힌 담게 로난
So the only it is because we do not recognize our own awareness that we follow our afflictions and accumulate karma and experience suffering as a result. So therefore, through my prayer, may all you beings recognize your intrinsic awareness. So then we stop here for today, and we will read together the dedication prayers. Page 7. Page 7. 11. Oh, 11. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn may it arise, where it is born may it not decline, and may ever increase, rising higher and higher. Back to 12. For this heavenly realm, encircled by snow-covered mountains, the primordial source of all benefit and bliss, is dancing Gyatso Chenrezig in person. May he remain steadfast until samsara's end. Embodiment of the three precious jewels, Padmapani, who holds the teachings of the victorious one, seeing the all-goodness meaning with the wisdom eye, may you who are spontaneously established activities live long for hundreds of kalpas. Saint Manjushri, the Lord of Speech, who manifests to hold the teachings of the Triple Gem, who raises the lamp of the sage's teachings, may you who are the light of the Dharma live long for hundreds of kalpas.
Everybody Sangha thank you. Everybody Sangha thank you.